Things are really starting to happen in Canada. And I want to emphasize that I think they're just starting to happen in spite of all the news that's been generated about the Convoy for Freedom, Canada Freedom Convoy 2022. That has made headlines around the world, and that is fantastic. And the truckers and their supporters, farmers, are still in Ottawa, going strong and driving the people who live in the capital crazy, absolutely crazy. But I'm not going to focus on Ottawa today. I want to tell you that there's actually much more going on than is being widely reported. There are other convoys. There are border blockades happening. There are slow rolls happening, which I guess means that big rigs are slowing down traffic on highways strategically to cause problems. And listen, this is spreading like crazy. So that's what I'm going to cover today. And I'm also going to show you a very, very significant resignation that happened. It's actually Trudeau's former head of security, who was an RCMP officer. He resigned and he has joined the movement. Isn't this incredible? So I'm going to show you a little snippet of his speech later on for some inspiration. All right, so first, let me get this out of the way. This is about Ottawa. It's something that's happening right now. This is the whole convoy movement. They had done a GoFundMe, and it was up to $10 million. And then Ottawa City Council decided to make a motion that this needed to be investigated, the fundraising. And so GoFundMe has officially frozen the account of the Freedom Convoy now. At least that's what I'm hearing. There is so much mis and disinformation floating around out there. It's a very quickly evolving situation. All of this is. So you have to forgive me if my information is out of date by the time I upload this, or if things have changed. I'm just bringing you what I can, the best I can. All right. The funds are frozen. It was Ottawa City Council that did it. And the police chief apparently in Ottawa has threatened to call in the army. I don't think he can do that even. But this is the thing. What they're doing right now is basically a strategy of confusion. There is so much noise being generated. There are so many calls to arrest people, bring in the army, freeze funds. It's just nuts right now. It's total mayhem. I didn't point it out. The truckers are feeding the homeless at this point, because they've got so much food and barbecues and cooktops and things like that. They're feeding the homeless all over Ottawa. They're cleaning up garbage all over Ottawa. The police officers themselves have repeatedly stated that it's been fairly good. They've been under control. Anyway, moving on from Ottawa, the capital, the reeing, the honkening, as they're calling it. Honk honk has become a hashtag for this if you want to search for it. Moving on from that to what are actually possibly the more important and more impactful happenings with truckers, with farmers, and with regular citizens across, at least from Ontario westward. I haven't heard anything yet from the east, from Quebec, nor from the Atlantic provinces in Canada, but out in Coutts, Alberta, here's a Facebook page you can go follow if you're on Facebook. AB Coutts Convoy, Jan 29th. Coutts is a border town, borders with Montana. It is one of Canada's most significant border crossings for things like livestock and agriculture, as far as I know. It's the only one in the region that's open 24/7. So this border at Coutts is a significant one that they have been disrupting. Here's what it looked like a couple of days ago. There's trucks and tractors and rigs all over the place blocking this border. Here's a great photo I just love from what's happening there. Two cowboys with flags on hockey sticks on their horses. I mean, that is a be still my heart moment right there. Glorious, wonderful photo. These are some of the people involved, and they're shown here meeting with 2 RCMP officers. Rebel News has been down there. 2 reporters from Rebel News have been down there, and they've been posting just 2-minute videos to Twitter so far. And I'm a little disappointed they cut off so quickly. We're not able to hear more of it. But there's a great moment in that video that I want to play for you right now, just so you hear.
Matter of what do you do next? How long can you stay? Forever. 2 weeks.
We will stay.
Yeah.
No, we will stay. We will stay. We can make this easy too. For you guys, is by you guys working with us. Like we're in this together. We all want the same thing. We want this stuff done.
No
The
more
whole
mandates.
They have to be finished.
This
We're
isn't
not
just
here
about a message.
to cause issues. The minute
absolutely
restrictions get taken down, we'll leave.
We get that the message has been delivered,
We
but
get
it
it.
hasn't helped. Like everything's still the same.
That's right.
Nothing is
This whole
changing.
media thing that we're just a little fringe minority, there is more and more happening. Just so you guys know,
You guys
this
might
is not a small fringe minority.
Okay. Talking to you guys. What we have been told to impart upon you is that today is the day that you're opening the highway. And the reason that that's happening is because we've been instructed to do so by the people that are in charge of us.
So when will
So
you
when
guys
you
stand
say-
up for us?
When you
Like,
say
are
that,
you guys not tired? Like, do you not have families? Do you
Absolutely.
not have families that this affects?
yes,
Like, this is the time where we all work together. We need you guys to make a choice as well today to stand with us to make this change. Amen. We have so much going on right now. We have so much support right now. You guys can decide to say F you to your superiors and say we're not doing this anymore.
It's happened in other police forces.
You know, it has to, it,
okay, I'm
you
going to
guys-
stop you there.
Well,
That's
I know
not an
that.
option that we have.
You do.
You have the option.
We can do it. You can do it.
Do it right now.
Do it. You have the option. Thank you.
You rather come in and strong arm, no negotiations. Really, that's your process.
These guys want the police to join them. They're doing their best to say, look, this affects your family too. You know, yes, you've got a job and you would like to keep your job. Everybody gets that. The truckers say, like, we want to be doing our jobs. We want to be making money for our families too. There's tons of regular people making sacrifices, losing income for the good of our country. And you police officers, RCMP, the provincial police departments, the local police forces, you guys aren't that different. You also could put down your income for a while to join this side, to save this country, to really fight for the future of your families, your children, for our freedom. So I thought it was a beautiful moment, and I want to add my voice to that right now. If any police officers or army or doctors or paramedics or whoever you are, doesn't matter. This is the moment. This is the moment. This is the moment to take the risk. You might lose some income, but we all have to stand together. This is turning into a working class revolution in this country. It really is. It could be a big general strike for the working man and woman to take back control. All right. After those officers were there, that I just showed you in Coots, talking to those guys, after hours and hours, maybe it was the next day, the police came back and they said, look, can we get a good faith agreement going here? We will arrange a meeting for you of the politicians so that you can negotiate with them if you open one lane so we can get goods moving across this border. And the truckers and farmers unblocked the one lane and went to this meeting. And turns out there was no good faith on the part of the MLAs. That's what they call the politicians out in Alberta. No good faith on the part of the MLAs. No good faith on the part of the police. They tried to double cross them when they had opened the lane. So that was very disappointing. So what happened was the truckers didn't take it lying down. The farmers didn't take it lying down. Watch this clip of this CBC report.
The decision was made that this road needed to be open, and that's what the RCMP intended to do. And in something that doesn't happen a whole heck of a lot, as you would know, they decided to let us come along for the ride today and have them have sort of a bird's eye view of this happening. And it didn't go exactly as planned. A few vehicles did leave after the RCMP asked them to, but while that was happening, a whole whack of other vehicles sort of stormed through the RCMP blockade on Highway number 4 here and reinforced this blockade. So the trucks you see directly behind me weren't here earlier today. They've actually just come today to reinforce this blockade. So while the RCMP were trying to clear this road, the road's actually more clogged up than it was this morning.
Well, sorry, brothers, that's what you get. Here's what resulted. Here's a clip of that.
There they go! Woo! Go, tractors, go! Ken the Coops! Oh, you hear him now? The cops. There they
Go, truckers, go! Yes, so that was a couple of days ago, I think, or maybe yesterday morning. It's hard to keep track of, it really is. Here's a still image of some great big pieces of farm equipment being rolled in to block the roads. Because what I heard was that the truckers blockaded the border, then the cops blockaded the truckers and weren't letting supplies and food in. So then another group of farmers and truckers blockaded the police. That's what I heard was happening. Again, hard to get details of this, but very inspiring. And look, if they don't get support, if more people don't join in, these men are hanging their necks out there by themselves. Although I shouldn't say that. I should not say by themselves, because look at what has been developing. People from all over Alberta showed up at Coots last night in support. People that genuinely love their country and their countrymen. More people are leaving this morning for Coots. A guy from Grand Prairie woke up and started driving, asking who needs what hauled down. So yeah, they're bringing in supplies, fuel, food, who knows what else, but they're trying to get the word out of what they need. For example, right now in Coots, they need propane. And it has spread to a nearby town called Milk River. They thought, okay, and maybe this is where they blockaded the police in. I don't know. They kind of called their bluff and they went about 4 kilometers back on the road. And the people of Milk River are now joining in, giving truckers breakfasts, bringing in supplies, blockading the road there. And that's not all. The deer have started to run in Tabor. Tabor is another town in Alberta, a little further away from this. This is about to get very interesting. Ever seen a tractor towed? Me neither. Game on. So these are all John Deere tractors. These are the farmers joining in Tabor, Alberta. And it turns out that the folks in Emerson, Manitoba, have been up to this already for a week. They've already been doing the border blockades, Emerson, Manitoba, for a week. And now we hear approximately 100 tractors and trucks are headed to Sarnia border crossing to support Coots and the Freedom Convoy. And it says here for the afternoon, But hopefully they can get something going there that makes it last even longer. And a convoy is starting between Lethbridge and Coaldale at noon today. I mean, okay, today is February 3rd. So whenever you're watching this, obviously, you have to adjust for that. And also the truckers and farmers are handing out a pamphlet now, Project Inform they're calling it, talking about what is it possibly going on with the vaccines and the medical experimentation and all kinds of things like that. I mean, guys, I'm supposed to be taking a break, but these people, this country is starting to rumble. It's starting to rumble. What they need most is coverage of this event to motivate the people in all the towns across this country to start little fires. I don't mean real fires, okay? I mean these slow rolls. I mean these blockades. I mean these convoys to surround. I've heard they're going to Lethbridge, Alberta, to surround the legislature building there. You could do that in every city. Go to your city hall, surround it. Because here's the thing. One of the greatest detriments to being able to effectively protest in Canada is our country's large size and sparse population. We are a huge country, and our people have a hard time gathering together. It's really expensive to travel across Canada, or it takes a really long time to drive. So this has been the problem. This has been the problem. But, if we can flip that around, it's also a problem for law enforcement. If we do enough demonstrations spread out far enough across Canada and across provinces, the police and law enforcement resources will be stretched so thin they will not be able to keep up. And this is one of those things where the snowball rolls or the grass fire catches. Once we feel the power, so many more protests and local actions will spring up. It's almost natural. The best they have to hope for is to cut communications across the country. Cut communications between groups so that we don't know what's happening. I mean, look, I just brought you that news, and it was from a convoy person who's deep into this. And they just found out about the convoy in Emerson, Manitoba, that's been going on for a week. They just found out. So communication is key. We got to get communication networks. So guys, this is some awesome momentum. And people are terrified that this is going to lead to a globalist takeover, right? They asked me, well, seriously though, don't you think they're luring these truckers into a bad position and they're going to use it to justify clamping down harder or bringing in the army or something? Look, they were going to do that anyway. In answer to, aren't they just luring us into a trap? I want to play you this little bit from Corporal Daniel Bulford, who was Trudeau's head of security and RCMP, who has resigned because he just can't stand to watch what's happening to our rights in this country. He can't stand to watch it happening to his own family or to the strangers. He specifically says, I have stood by and watched as we have arrested people for really no reason, as we've seized children. And he's disgusted. He's ashamed of himself for having waited so long. So I'll play a clip from him. Listen.
If we dig deep in our history and doctrine and remember that we are not descended from fearful people, not from people who fear to write, speak, associate, and defend causes that were for the moment unpopular. That's Edward R. Murrow. I feel that we have detracted so far from the values and culture that form the core identity of what it means to be a Canadian. That belief in ourselves that we are a humble, welcoming, fair, and compassionate people. When I reflect on these past months, I even recognize that same failure in myself. We are divided, with both sides angry and fearful of each other, and how much worse this will get. Our language has been used to divide Canada into an us versus them mindset, the responsible versus the irresponsible, the anti-vaxxers versus the sheep. We cannot continue to allow this decline toward a further divided, increasingly authoritarian state. We need to communicate honestly and courageously to make our perspective heard so that others may be given the opportunity to understand. If others have not sought out both sides of the argument, it's no wonder they think and believe what they do. It is time to be strong in mind and body and in character. It will require sacrifice and preparation. The sacrifice will be of the comfort and the security that can be found in remaining silent. It's difficult to have discussions with people who disagree on such a contentious issue, but that's a good place to start. Courage takes practice. If you're actively exercising peaceful noncompliance, go with a group if possible. There is strength in numbers. It will be hard and awkward and very uncomfortable at times. However, if we continue to allow this unchecked by our silence and compliance, then the failure to effect change is on our shoulders. We can live up to the anthem, the true north, strong and free. I have drawn my line in the sand. No more silence and compliance for me. Life will not be the normal of before. Relationships and careers will be sacrificed, but we will learn who we can rely on.
As he says, it's not going to be easy. But look at all the people who are giving up income, who are giving up security, who are giving up comfort. All of the truckers, all of their loved ones are in it. Don't let them down. Don't let the kids down. This man who has just quit, obviously a lucrative job where he could have gone along to get along and been quite comfortable for quite a long time, maybe for the rest of his life, if he just could swallow his pride in the worst way, if he could just swallow mistreating his fellow Canadians, if he could just go home every night knowing that he was a villain, he could be quite comfortable with his nice house and this and that. But look, we can all return to a level of comfort if we're just willing to go through some level of discomfort right now. Take the risk. Are they luring us into a trap? Like I said, what's the alternative? Sit there and let them do it without a fight? Here is a service member in the Canadian Forces with a little message for you.
Let me tell you what it means to serve in the Canadian Armed Forces and wear this uniform. It means you must always follow our ethical principles. 1. Respect the dignity of all persons. 2. Serve Canada before self. And 3. Obey and support lawful authority. What you need to know is that those ethical principles are an order of precedence. So it means we must always put humanity and the Canadians that we serve at the forefront of all our decisions and actions. To the truckers, farmers, and everyone standing up for our rights and freedoms, the rights and freedoms that I signed up to protect, thank you for your courage, thank you for your sacrifices, thank you for your strength. I stand with you. Hold the line.
Right. This is the oath they take, and we don't know. We don't know what's going on in the ranks of the army. The people that you fear will be sent after us. Who's to say they'll all follow the orders? Who's to say they will when push comes to shove? Because another ingredient has finally started to happen in this country that I didn't think was possible. And actually, it's not really what's happening in this country, it's what's happening outside of this country. Do you remember when I talked about political ponerology, which is political evil? Just a minute. And it was written by a guy, or I think a few people, who had lived through Sovietism, communism in Poland. So they studied this, and they wrote a book called Political Ponerology, and they said one of the things that topples these evil totalitarian regimes is that the totalitarian regime becomes more and more absurd as a natural consequence of being totalitarian because, as we're seeing, the normal people start to quit. They can't take it anymore, so they start to quit. So these organizations, these bureaucracies, these enforcement agencies, they start to fill with lunatics. And so the rhetoric coming out of them sounds more and more lunatic. And who can deny that that's been happening? Okay, so the guy, Lobachevsky, who wrote Political Ponerology, pardon me, he says that one of the things that finally topples the totalitarianism is when they can't contain the crazy anymore and other countries start to notice. And I thought to myself at the time, well, this is never going to happen for Canada because this is like a globalist thing. They're just going to keep cheering on Canada for its craziness the whole time. And because they had been. You know, all the countries were doing the same thing, so Canada was just, who cares? Canada's just doing what everybody else is doing. But all of a sudden, other countries are going more sane, and now Canada stands out like a sore thumb as the capital of crazy in the whole world. And other countries' media is starting to call us out on that. I have screen grabs here from just a few. Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson have simply been eviscerating Trudeau and others in Canada in the leadership. But also, Sky News in Australia is covering this, saying that we've gone off the deep end, absolutely off the deep end, and they're covering the convoys. But also Neil Oliver, who's a very popular commentator out of Britain, he's Scottish, I think, so I don't know if he's in Britain or Scotland, but anyway, he's a very popular commentator. I won't tell you what he said. Here, watch.
These truckers are inspiring.
Yes, they are, in a way that I haven't been inspired by anything else, really, since all of this began. Do you know, when it all kicked off, back in 2020, for the very first time in my whole life, I felt there was something wrong about what we were being told, and that was a unique experience for me because I've never been a controversial, contrarian person. I've always kept my head down, toed the line, but I knew just somewhere in my gut that what we were being told wasn't right. And I held on to that instinct. And when the story began to develop about the truckers in Canada, I felt something very similar, but the flip side of the coin. I felt that what they were doing was absolutely right. I felt that for the longest time, contrary voices, opposition to lockdown and restrictions and all the rest was being dismissed by leaders, and it was being brushed under the carpet and ignored by the mainstream media. But for the first time, the efforts of the Canadian truckers were on such a scale that finally it just couldn't be ignored. It was just too grand, and almost begrudgingly, even the mainstream media have begun to acknowledge that it was going on. And there's something just completely right about the stand, because I think what was always required in the face of the authoritarian behaviour of leaders was for just enough people, regular people, to stand up and say no. And they're in Canada, where they've been under some of the most draconian restrictions and regulations, really, much like your homeland of New Zealand. And, that has turned, I think it's been like a ray of sunshine. It's a break in the clouds.
We are moving people. We are exciting the world. And we are being called out. Our leadership is being called out, particularly for being off the deep end, tyrannical, and just goofy. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about Trudeau's speech the other day, where he doubled down, calling people who are fighting for freedom, for the working class, for the middle class men and women of Canada, the truckers, the farmers, those activists. He called us all every name in the book, yet again. And our media is being called out by the international media for its lies, for its failure to cover this story at all for a long time, and now for its mischaracterization of the people involved and its hiding of facts. And surely the story of them now stealing $10 million from a GoFundMe account that Canadians coast to coast have donated their hard-earned money into. Definitely the media's in the international community will call this out. They will. Oh yes, I've seen stories out of India as well covering Canada and the convoy and saying, what is going on? They are the worst. They have had the most draconian lockdown for the longest time. So guys, the impossible, what I thought was impossible, is happening. Number one, the truckers and farmers protest has lit a fire coast to coast in this country. And the leadership doesn't seem to have a clue what to do about it. Trudeau took off. Nobody even knows where he is. I mean, this is true Soviet or Middle East dictator moves, right? To just abandon ship and run away and try to govern from exile. We don't know where he is. I mean, I assume he's still in the country somewhere. And actually, people think they have found him. But I won't post that information because that might be a little too risky for me to post. But, okay, so number one, the fire has been lit. Number two, the world is starting to call us out. Like they did to all of the, to Poland, to Romania, to all of the communist holdout Eastern European states. And the world hammered them, just hammered them. And what eventually happened...
Finally, Romanians could laugh no longer. But the revolution got a decisive boost when the army changed sides. The Ceausescus were captured. The Ceausescus were accused of killing thousands of people during the revolution and in the years before.
Crimă prin înfometare, prin lipsă de căldură, prin lipsă de lumină. Dar cea mai odioasă crimă a fost crima de a încătușa spiritul românesc, sufletul acestui popor.
This was a show trial. After 90 minutes, it ended with the Ceausescus being sentenced to death.
Solidarity broke communism in Poland, which is kind of similar to what we've got going on now in Canada, kind of a workers, regular people, general strike rebellion. I want to see this map filled with dots for actions of blockades, of slow rolls, of surrounding legislatures or small city halls, whatever. Let's just spread it out all the time so the police don't know what they're doing. All right, but aside from that, if you're not a trucker, if you're not a farmer, if you can't be someone who supports them by bringing them food or fuel or hand warmers or whatever, what can you do? You can spread this message. They are trying so hard to flood the zone with their own narrative that truckers are terrorists, white supremacists, misogynists, Nazis. They're literally calling us these names and running news stories about this all the time. Oh yes, and terrorists now, terrorists. And they want the army to come out and stop them. These are the supposed liberals. These are the people who you see all the time with this fist symbol, like they're working class champions of the low classes. They're total absolute hypocrites, because as soon as the actual working men and women show up in their city, they can't take it anymore. They can't take it. Immediately they spaz out.
I lost my mind because I haven't slept in 5 fucking days. It has to fucking stop.
Oh, and I mean, he's not the only one. So yes, they're flooding the zone with their narrative. We need to flood the zone with our message, the truth. Seek this out and repost it and send it around in emails and share keywords and share links. Find out what the truckers and farmers need themselves. Try to get as close to first-hand information as you can and do whatever you can to support them. All right? Secondly, and this this is so easy if you let it be. Take off your masks. These men and women, the truckers and the farmers, and those supporting them, and those they're filming, and those spreading the word, they're all taking risks, big risks. They're all uncomfortable. Daniel, as he said, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it is. So what? If you have to drive an hour out of your way to get groceries at a store where you're allowed to take off your mask, and believe me, they'll all ask you to put on a mask and you just say, I'm exempt, and they back off like they literally, it's like a video game. It is. They'll go, do you have a mask? And you say, no, I have an exemption. And they go, that's what they do. I swear. They just fade off into the background. So just take off the masks. Like I said, if you have to drive somewhere else, if you have to keep your kid home from school because the school will not let him in without a mask, do it, do it, do it. You're not being asked to lie in a ditch and wait to be shot at. But that day might come if we don't do this now. Either that or just, I guess, sit back, get ready to go into the perverted metaverse where your kids are going to be groomed by old men dressed as cats. This is already happening, by the way, but I won't get into it. Just do that, I guess. Just give all your money to Klaus Schwab, eat the bugs in your little pod, own nothing, and let's see how happy you are. Because these are your options right now, guys. I know you've got it in you to do one of these things. I know you've got it in you. So start doing it. Honk, honk. I'm going to leave you with a really inspiring video from a rally in Vancouver. I'll play that. It's 2 minutes long after I sign out. So visit my website, amazingpolly.net. That's where you can find out how to contact me if you'd like to send me something through the mail, or if you'd like to make an online contribution to my work so I can continue bringing you reports like these. I would really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's been so generous. Awesome support. I can't get over the love in your letters and the little gifts you send, and the cards. Really keeps me going, keeps my spirits up. The messages you send, the comments you leave on the videos. I mean, best audience on the internet by far. Thank each and every one of you. And that's why I say, I know you can do it. You've got it in you. Take off the mask, be brave, support the truckers, spread the word, try to find firsthand information, push back against the clown narrative, and know in your heart, we can do this. We can do this. God is right there watching over us. Pray unceasingly. And okay, I will stop. AmazingPolly.net. Don't forget to visit there. And until next time,